Let's continue. Like we don't have too much left. We'll complete the legislature portion, and then I'll look at some other sections within polity, like emergency, like some very confusing areas where revision can be helpful, and then we'll do questions. Okay. So we were at money bill. What we did in money bill so far. Before we go to money bill, let's look at what are the types of bills that are passed by Parliament. Until now, we looked at all the motions. We looked at all the motions that are there. Now let's look at the types of bills. So first important categories of bills are public bills versus private bills. So differences are important. Differences generally they take certain keywords and change them to confuse you and make questions. So public bills, what are the important characteristics? Public bill introduced by a minister, it is given with a 7-day notice period. Then the minister has the assistance of the department, the bureaucrats, they will help the minister to make the bill. Then you have discussion in the house, like discussion of the money bill, of the public bill can happen on any day. Monday to Thursday, even Friday, any day discussion can happen on public bills. And absolute veto power does not exist for a public bill. So let's look at how to contrast this with a private bill. First of all, private bill is by anyone who is not a minister. Anyone who is not a minister, even from the ruling party, someone who's not the minister. Notice period for private member bill is 30 days. At least 30-day notice period you have to provide. Next, there is no assistance. The private bill does not have any assistance from the bureaucrats, from the ministry, and so on. And only on alternate Fridays after 2 p.m. can alternate Friday afternoons private member bill can be introduced. And lastly, absolute veto exists, and this is an important fact. That absolute veto, and like small trivial fact which can be important for prelims, that absolute veto power of president exists for private member bills. So how is an ordinary bill introduced? First of all, ordinary bill can be introduced in any house, either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. It goes through 3 readings. Any bill goes through three steps. First, the bill will be published in the official gazette. Second, after the bill is published and some period has been given, discussion will happen on the bill. In the parliament, in the house, they will discuss the bill, discuss the provisions of the bill. Then, sometimes based on the discussion, the bill can go to a select committee. Parliament has parliamentary committees, so it can go to a select committee. And whether it goes to a select committee or no, who decides? Who decides whether the bill needs to go for a committee or no? It is the government. Government is the one who decides, not the speaker, not the whip, not the leader of the house. Government, according to rules of procedure, the government will decide whether the bill needs to go to the standing committee or not. And lastly, then within this you also have amendments. The committee can suggest amendments. Amendments might get introduced into the bill, and finally you have voting. You have voting, clause by clause voting, or like we discussed all the motions, right? Closure motions. So closure motions, there's voting. So in an ordinary bill, what happens in case there is a deadlock between the 2 houses? If Lok Sabha has passed, Rajya Sabha has not passed, then there's a provision for joint sitting. Has joint sitting happened before? Yes, joint sitting has happened for 2 bills. So with respect to ordinary bills, what is important? Both Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha have equal powers. Next is that the joint sitting, you need to remember the article. Joint sitting comes under Article 108. Like there are some important articles with respect to Parliament that you need to remember. Article 108 is for joint sitting. Article 105 is for privileges of the MPs. Right? Like there are lots of important articles to remember. Article 72 is for collective responsibility of Council of Ministers to the Parliament. Right? Like all of these articles become quite important. Okay. Next is money bill. Ordinary bill, same powers for both. And one more important fact about joint sitting. One important fact for joint sitting is, in case speaker is not available, speaker is absent on the day of joint sitting, who will take up the role of speaker? Will it be vice president? Will it be the deputy speaker of Rajya Sabha? Will it be deputy speaker, deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha? Who will it be? So it is not the chairman of Rajya Sabha. It is not the vice president, because vice president is not elected to Rajya Sabha or to Lok Sabha. So he will not preside. If speaker is not present, deputy speaker will take up the role. If deputy speaker is also not present, the deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha will take up. Vice president has no role to play in the joint sitting. Vice president has absolutely no role to play in joint sitting. Next, money bill. Money bill comes under Article 110 of the Constitution. So money bill specifically, what does Lakshmikant say? Money bill deals with the imposition, abolition, remission, alteration or regulation of any tax. Borrowing by union government, expenditure charged on consolidation of India, taxes, receipt of money on consolidated fund of India or public accounts of India. Any of these categories, if a bill comes under any of these categories, it comes under money bill. So how to remember? Like how I remember is, if money is coming into consolidated fund of India or public funds, meaning receipts, then it is a money bill. If it is dealing with money going out with expenditure charged on consolidated fund of India, that is also a money bill. Then you have taxes. Taxes are also ways by which money comes into the account. So taxes will also come under money bill. Borrowing of money. If union government is issuing bonds, it is borrowing money from abroad. Even that will affect the balances. So even that is a money bill. Okay. So remember with these, like if it is affecting the finances positively or negatively, it becomes a money bill. Okay. So how is money bill passed? So money bill is introduced in Lok Sabha. Important fact, money bill cannot be introduced in Rajya Sabha. Money bill is only introduced in Lok Sabha. After it is introduced in Lok Sabha, money bill goes to Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha has only 14 days to decide on the money bill. In 14 days, it has to either pass the money bill or it has to suggest amendments and send it back. There is no provision for a deadlock. Okay, there is no provision for joint sitting. After Rajya Sabha suggests amendments to money bill and it goes to Lok Sabha can decide to reject the amendments altogether. There is no pressure on Lok Sabha to even consider it. And on money bill, President does not have any suspensive veto. Suspensive veto is not, power is not there for President on money bill. There's also specific criteria which are not, joint sitting cannot happen in constitutional amendment bill also. Joint sitting cannot happen in constitutional amendment bill. What are not money bill? Okay. Okay. So basically, if you're talking about fines or penalties, even though fines and penalties affect how much money can come to the government, that is not considered a money bill. Next, two more important characteristics for money bill. President does not have any, the prior permission of president is not needed to introduce money bill. It is required to introduce money bill. If you want to introduce money bill, sorry, I messed it up. If you want to introduce money bill, okay, the prior permission of the president is needed. Like if for an ordinary bill, I can introduce the ordinary bill without the permission of president. But if I want to introduce money bill in Lok Sabha, permission is needed from the president first. President needs to give permission to introduce a money bill. Next, the speaker's decision on the money bill, whether a bill is a money bill or not, is considered to be final. So even in Aadhaar judgment was deciding, can Aadhaar be considered a money bill or no? And Aadhaar was considered a money bill. Okay, and it upheld the speaker's power to decide whether a bill should be money bill or no. Aadhaar judgment, why was it considered to be a money bill? Okay, Aadhaar judgment, why was it considered to be money bill? They said that Aadhaar is relating to welfare expenditure. Using Aadhaar, individuals will be getting their welfare benefits. Direct benefit transfer is going to happen through Aadhaar. Correct? So in that scenario, Aadhaar is relating to the taxes of the people. It is relating to the expenditure, government expenditure on schemes, is what the government said to the Supreme Court. That using Aadhaar, we will be rationalizing the expenditure, and which is why we had which was the stance taken by the government, and it was upheld. So what is a finance bill then? First of all, finance bill comes under Article 170. What does finance bill and money bill have in common? First thing is finance bill of type 1. There's a type 1 finance bill. For that, you need prior permission of president to introduce. Same as money bill. Money bill also needs prior permission of president. Type 1 finance bill also needs prior permission of president. Okay. So how is the money bill different? It is said that all money bills are financial bills, but all financial bills are not money bills. So how is financial bill different? Okay. So financial bill, what they say is that it deals also with matters of general legislation. Okay. So a financial bill will not deal only with taxation. If a bill deals only with taxation, then it is a money bill. A finance bill of type 1 may deal with taxation, but can also deal with 10, 12 other issues. Okay. Like, so for instance, if I am going to introduce a welfare scheme for farmers. For farmers, I'm introducing a welfare scheme. Within that welfare scheme for farmers, I have a provision to introduce a new tax. I will introduce new tax and surcharge of 0.5%, like Krishi Kalyan cess. Krishi Kalyan cess, I will introduce a new cess for the welfare of farmers to implement my scheme. Okay, that will become a finance bill of type 1. Why? Because it deals with taxation, but it does not only deal with taxation. The main purpose of the bill is what? The main purpose of the bill is welfare of the farmers. But taxation is merely one component of it. So which is why it is a finance bill, because finance aspect is there, but it is not money bill, because it is not dealing only with taxation. It is dealing with other aspects as well. But in other aspects, finance bill is exactly like money bill. It will be passed like money bill. Rajya Sabha does not have 14-day limit. Rajya Sabha can suggest amendments. Okay, joint sitting is there. Everything else is same for money as a ordinary bill, similar to ordinary bill. Finance bill of type 2. Finance bill of type 2 is that it can be introduced in either house. It can be introduced either in Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, and it involves expenditure. It is everything else that we spoke about. Like, it can involve other matters of general legislation. It can involve another bill and so on. Right? All of that is there, but expenditure is added. So, for example, if I want to pass a scheme where I'm spending, supposing I'm passing a scheme for building disabled-friendly infrastructure, okay, for which I'm allocating 1,000 crores. Then this will be passed as finance bill of type 2. Why? Because it deals with expenditure. But the main purpose is not expenditure. Main purpose is building disabled-friendly infrastructure, but for which you're allocating expenditure. So in which case it becomes finance bill of type 2. What about budget? How is the budget passed? Budget comes under Article 112 of the Constitution. Budget is introduced as a money bill. So it's introduced in Lok Sabha only. In budget, there are two components. There is an appropriation bill. Appropriation bill deals with expenditure. Then there's a finance bill, which deals with revenue. Appropriation bill has two components: expenditure charged to Consolidated Fund of India, okay, and demand for grants. Expenditure which is charged on Consolidated Fund of India is non-votable. Non-votable meaning Lok Sabha will not vote on expenditure charged on Consolidated Fund of India. When you have demand for grants, each ministry will submit its own demand for grants, and then that is once they submit it, then the Lok Sabha will vote on how much should be given, what should be given, and so on. So within that, there are within the demand for grants, there are different types of grants. So what are they? First is supplementary grant. Supplementary grant meaning if there is an existing scheme or service, and you want to increase the expenditure that is allocated for it, then you have a supplementary grant. Like supposing you already have a Manrega. This year you already had Manrega scheme. In Manrega scheme, if you want to allocate more expenditure, you want them to spend, you want to give more money because Manrega is having shortages, that will come under supplementary grant. Okay. Then you have additional grant. Additional grant is if I want to start a new scheme or a new service, then I will introduce an additional grant. Supposing there is a new component within an existing scheme, like supposing I already have midday meal scheme. In midday meal scheme, I want to also introduce the provision for protein. Okay, so this becomes a new service. For this new service, I will introduce an additional grant. Then you have excess grant. Supposing expenditure has already been done. Okay, supposing 1,000 crores was allocated, but the scheme spent 1,200 crores. So in excess grant, Parliament will grant the 200 crores that you've already spent, saying that this has been spent, this has been done by whatever by provisioning other money. Now we will formalize it by granting this money. Next is token grant. Token grant, what it says is that this scheme, this service is needed. I will allot a token amount of 1 rupee to this scheme. And once money becomes available from somewhere else to allocate to it, I will allocate that money. That is token grant. Vote on account. Vote on account is for a budget which is less than a year. And then you have vote on credit. Vote on credit is meant to meet an unexpected demand. Suppose like COVID pandemic. COVID pandemic, the expenditure will be incurred through a vote on credit. So while it is being passed, while the budget is being passed, there are 3 types of cut motions. There are 3 types of cut motions to reduce the budget or to not pass certain aspects of the budget. First is policy cut motion. Policy cut motion meaning you disapprove of the policy, the service, the scheme, whatever. You disapprove of it completely. So if Parliament passes a policy cut, the allocation for that scheme or service will become 1 rupee. Policy cut meaning you will cut the entire allocation for that and make the allocation only 1 rupee. What is economy cut? Economy cut is you believe that sufficient money does not exist to undertake a certain scheme or activity. Okay. So then the sum is reduced. The amount of money which is allocated under it will be reduced. So supposing 100 crores was requested by the ministry, but you feel that only 50 crores you can afford. You will do a economy cut. Parliament will pass an economy cut to reduce the amount to 50 crores. Last is token cut. Token cut is supposing you want to express a grievance. You want to express that you disapprove of a scheme. Then you do a token cut, where token cut will reduce the allocation by 100 rupees. By 100 rupees, you will reduce the allocation to show that Parliament disapproves of a certain scheme. Both demand for grants, token cut to repeat, token cut is you will reduce the scheme allocation by 100 rupees. Supposing scheme requested 100 crores, but the Parliament does not approve of the scheme completely. They want to say that we don't completely agree with you. Then you will do a token cut. Token cut is, these are generally passed by opposition. Token cut will reduce from 100 crores by 100 rupees. So it will be 99 crores, whatever, 99 lakhs, so on. But it will reduce by 100 rupees. Both demand for grants and cut motions only in Lok Sabha. Okay. No, Rajya Sabha has no power, only in Lok Sabha. So this concludes the money bill, finance bill, budget, all of that section. Next, we look at what are the types of funds. What are the types of funds which are present in the government? So obviously, I have Consolidated Fund of India. Consolidated Fund of India comes under Article 266. Consolidated Fund of India, Article 266, which deals with revenues, treasury bills, ways and advances. All of these come into the Consolidated Fund of India. Who has custody of the Consolidated Fund of India? Who can decide where the money from Consolidated Fund should go? It is the Parliament. Parliament has custody of the Consolidated Fund of India. Then you have public account. Public account is also under Article 266. Public account custody is under executive. What money is under public account? All money that comes to the government, except what goes to Consolidated Fund, comes under public account of India. So what does it include? It includes post office savings. It includes provident fund. It includes ESIC contribution. All of these will come under public account of India. And lastly, you have contingency fund. Contingency fund comes under Article 267. So what is the purpose of contingency fund? Contingency fund, its purpose is to meet emergency expenditure. Emergency expenditure. And who determines the size of the contingency fund? Who decides how large should the contingency fund be? It is Parliament. Parliament's role to determine the size of the contingency fund. What about the custody? Who maintains custody of the contingency fund? It is the President. President of India maintains it. However, and this is an important fact to remember for prelims, after the President approves the expenditure, and expenditure is done, Parliament still has to approve the expenditure. So supposing there's an emergency, supposing there is an attack by some country on India, for which India immediately needs 100 crores to be spent on ammunition, arms and ammunitions, so India can fight the war. That will be approved. If that is approved under Contingency Fund of India, if President sanctions it under Contingency Fund of India, Parliament still needs to approve it afterwards. Parliamentary approval is needed. Parliamentary privileges, next, parliamentary privileges, Article 105. Okay, there are two privileges. There are two parliamentary privileges which are mentioned in the Constitution. In the Constitution, you have freedom of speech, freedom to publish proceedings of Parliament. These are under these come under Constitution. Apart from this, there are other privileges as well, but those privileges are not under Constitution. Those privileges are based on custom. They're based on tradition. Two important people with regard to parliamentary privileges. Attorney General has parliamentary privileges. President does not have parliamentary privileges. Attorney General has parliamentary privileges. President does not have parliamentary privileges. What are the other privileges which are not mentioned in the Constitution? First is that no legal process can be served against a member of Parliament during session without the permission of the Speaker or the Chairman. Then Parliament has the right to regulate its own proceedings. I think that comes under Article 118, if I'm not mistaken. Parliament can regulate its own proceedings. Parliament has the power to punish people for breach of privilege and conduct its own inquiry. Okay. And in case any member of Parliament is arrested, Parliament has a right to be told about it. Next are individual privileges. You cannot be arrested 40 days before and after a session for civil cases. And parliamentary members are exempt from jury duty. All of these are parliamentary privileges. Some important facts which can be useful for the exam. First is, in Constitution, two privileges are mentioned. Constitution only has two privileges mentioned: freedom of speech in Parliament and right to publish proceedings of Parliament. These are the two things which are present in the Constitution itself. What are the expenses charged on the Consolidated Fund of India? This is also a generally often asked question and often very tricky. Expenses charged on Consolidated Fund are President of India, okay, then emoluments, allowances, office expenditure of President of India. Similarly, salaries and allowances of Speaker, Deputy Speaker, Chairman, Deputy Chairman, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. Then you have judges, Supreme Court judges, salaries, allowances and pensions, also in consolidated fund. Next, high courts. High courts, salaries are charged on the consolidated fund of the state. If you are a high court judge for Maharashtra, consolidated fund of Maharashtra will pay your salary. However, there is one important difference to remember always. Pensions of high court judges are charged on consolidated fund of India. Salary may be charged to consolidated fund of state, but pension is charged on consolidated fund of India. Next is CAG, UPSC. All of these also come under consolidated fund of India. Then interest payments. Any interest payment on government debt, also part of consolidated fund of India. However, there is one important expense which is not charged on consolidated fund of India. This is where consistently question is asked. Consistently question is asked about this. Election Commission. Does it come under consolidated fund of India or no? Election Commission does not come under consolidated fund of India. Okay. Election Commission expenses, administrative expenses of Election Commission need to be voted on by Parliament. Their salaries are also not voted, charged on consolidated fund of India. Okay. Therefore, Election Commission, one huge recommendation consistently has always been Election Commission to give it independence. Expenses need to be charged on consolidated fund of India so that they are not dependent on Parliament. So yeah, in terms of state legislature, I think not very difficult. The equivalents are there, like between Parliament and state legislature, there is like some equivalents. So that I think you can probably do on your own. Next is one other section is Representation of People's Act. According to Representation of People's Act, you need to know 1950 Representation of People's Act, what is there? 1951 Representation of People's Act. Both are also often asked questions. I think last year or last to last year also there was a question in UPSC about this. 1950 Representation of People's Act, what is there? 1951 Representation of People's Act, what is there? They try and confuse you on this. Okay. So 1950, the way I remember it is 1950 Representation of People's Act deals with the groundwork, the background work for conduct of elections. Whereas 1951 Act deals with actually how to conduct the elections. So 1951 Act will talk about how to prepare electoral roll. It will talk about how to conduct elections. Like what role should the parties play, how party symbol needs to be selected, all of that. 1950 Act will talk more about how constituencies are divided, how this delimitation needs to take place, that kind of facet. So between 1950 Representation of People's Act, 1951 Representation of People's Act, then you need to be clear. There was one other aspect of it, which is that on delimitation, I just remembered relating to current affairs. On delimitation, four states of India are not delimited according to 2001 census. All other states of India are delimited according to 2001 census. 4 states of India are not. So Jammu Kashmir, Assam, Nagaland, and one more. I can't remember. But you should know that Assam, Jammu Kashmir, Nagaland, and I think Manipur. It's also a northeastern state. 4 states in India are not delimited according to Mizoram, maybe. Yeah. So it's a northeastern state with them. I don't know why I don't remember. I'm sorry. But delimitation in India for all other states is according to 2001 census. So the reason why delimitation of Jammu Kashmir is happening right now is because Jammu Kashmir delimitation has not happened so far. Okay. Another fact, another very important fact relating to this is that there is a huge controversy currently about who should do the delimitation in Jammu Kashmir. What does Constitution say? Constitution says that every 10 years there needs to be a delimitation commission which will be appointed, which will conduct the delimitation. However, when the delimitation commission was appointed based on 2001 census, okay, and it did the delimitation for all states of India except these 4. What did Parliament say? Parliament said that these 4 states alone, there is no point making a separate delimitation commission for this. These 4 states alone, election commission will do the delimitation. Okay. But now so many years have passed, almost 10-15 years have passed since that delimitation last happened. Now pan-India delimitation is probably going to happen again. So question is, for these 4 states, should it be done by election commission as per the parliamentary law? Should it be done by the delimitation commission as per the constitution? This is a case which is undergoing right now. It can be important. So please make note of the details. Okay. So I'll, do you want me to do questions or do you want me to cover emergency provisions? We can do either. Most of you are saying questions, so let's do questions only. Like, I feel like most of this revision that I'm doing, you can kind of do on your own as well. Questions is something that maybe I'm adding some value. I'm bringing something different that you might not have done so far. Okay, there's a current affairs question based on something we have already discussed. So I will start with that. Okay, this we have discussed. We have done this in class, so I hope you get it right. Okay, 10 seconds more. We're going to do questions. Let's do as many as possible. So answer is A. A for Ahmedabad. Okay. So answer is A for Ahmedabad. So basically, first statement is clear. First statement is clear because that is what retrospective taxation means. It's a definition. Indian government for international arbitration case against Kane. We discussed that India has lost. We also discussed why India has lost. What are the provisions of the law? How did India change? We also discussed how it is the same as Vodafone. Even the Vodafone case, India lost. Okay. And third statement, India is the only country which taxes retrospectively. No. Lots of other countries have also taxed retrospectively. Different countries have different taxation regimes. In fact, even US, UK, Canada, even they have taxed retrospectively in the past. But no, I can see that like many more of you are getting answers correct these days. So that's a good thing. This is a long question. One small request to everyone: when you are answering, try to address the answer only to me, because it's making it difficult for others to read the question. If lots of options are coming at the same time, the question is going down and they're not able to see the question. So just address it only to me. So most of you have gotten this answer right. Answer is B. B for Bombay. Lots of you, almost 80-90% of you have gotten it right. Let's look at what the just a quick recap so that you remember the facts. So first statement is right, that State Public Service Commission, constitutional body, Joint Public Service Commission is a statutory body. You need to form a law. It is formed by law. Second statement, Joint Public Service Commission is appointed by President, and state is appointed by Governor. This is also right. Why are the third and fourth statements wrong? So third statement is members of Joint Public Service Commission are removed by President. That is correct. State Public Service Commission can be removed by Governor. That is wrong. Although Governor is the one who appoints the State Public Service Commission members, removal is only done by President. The same parallel also exists for the State Election Commission. State Election Commission also, it is appointed by Governor, but removal can only be by President, not by the Governor. Fourth statement, why is it wrong? Joint State Public Service Commission does not present its annual performance report to the president. In fact, it gives it to both the governors of the states or the multiple governors of the states. Okay, all the governors will get it. Whereas State Public Service Commission will only give it annually to the governor. Statement 4 is also wrong. Let's go to the next one. Read the options very carefully, because this kind of language can be tricky, can be confusing. We have all done anti-defection in the past. We know the details. We know Article, we know Schedule 10, 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act, all that we know. But like this language can be tricky. So please read it very carefully. Answer is C. C for Chennai. 1 and 4 only. So how do you approach this question? So generally, like at least what I do is when it says which of the following are not the benefits of anti-defection law, start by looking at what are the benefits of anti-defection law. Okay. Does anti-defection law provide a distinction between independent member and nominated member? No. In fact, it discriminates between the two of them. Second statement, it facilitates democratic realignment of parties. Yes. Anti-defection law, you vote according to your party. Parties are allowed to merge with each other. So alignment and realignment happens on a party level, not on individual level. So second statement would be correct. It is a benefit of anti-defection law. That what happens due to anti-defection law, people align based on party. They don't align based on individual preference. Third, constitutional recognition to political parties. Yes, because you're giving more emphasis to party rather than the individual. Differentiates between dissent and defection? No. In fact, it achieves the opposite. In anti-defection law, even if you are not allowed to disagree with your party also. Whatever party says is only right. Okay. So fourth is incorrect. So 1 and 4 are incorrect. So answer is C. C for Chennai. Anti-defect. Okay. For those who have asked about anti-defection, basically what happened is in the 1980s, there used to be a lot of buying the votes of MPs and MLAs for money. Now it was also the time of coalition politics. So if supposing I need 200 votes to pass a bill, but I only have 150 votes, sometimes there were accusations that the government in power is giving money to the electors, to the MPs, to vote for their bill. Okay? Or that opposition is giving money to the government MPs so that the bill doesn't pass. So in order to counter this, they passed anti-defection law, where they said that if someone does not follow the party whip, does not vote according to the party line, they will be disqualified and their seat will be revoked. Next option is kind of a tricky question. It's a tricky question, but this area is very important to cover. It's a tough question. It's a tough question, but you need to know what these terms mean. It's important. I'm glad to see that everyone's attempting, but like everyone's attempting. Should I start discuss? Like, okay, 10 seconds more. 10 seconds more, I'll start. Because this might be an area that you are slightly unaware. So answer for this question is B. B for Bombay. So let's go through these terms. What do these terms mean? What is escheat? What is escheat? Escheat means if a person dies without any heir, okay, then the government will have the right to take over the property of that person. That is known as escheat. Now, supposing there's an 80-year-old man who has no sons, no daughters, no one, and he dies. His property will go to the government, and it will go to the government under the criteria of escheat. So that is escheat. Escheat is when it goes to government because there was no will and there is no heirs for the person. Next, lapse. Lapse, second statement is right. Lapse refers to termination of rights through failure to follow appropriate procedures. Now, supposing government has prescribed that this much property tax you need to pay at this much time, your property needs to be compliant with health codes, it needs to be it needs to have sewage facilities, all of that. But supposing you are not following those rules, time and time again you are not following those rules, government has the right to terminate your ownership of the land or ownership of the property. This is known as lapse. So if you do not follow the law, if you do not follow appropriate procedure, government has the right to take over your property. That is known as lapse. Next is bona vacantia. Bona vacantia is supposing there is a property without any owner. Then government has the right to become the owner of that property. That is known as bona vacantia. Like supposing there is like initially when at independence there was land which was not owned by anyone, right? Government has the right to become the owner of that land by bona vacantia because there is no owner. So these three these three are the terms. So obviously first statement is wrong, third statement is correct, second statement is first and third statement are wrong, second statement is correct. What about statement 4? Statement 4 says that only in case of escheat and bona vacantia, property can be taken by government. In fact, even in lapse, it can be taken. There is no need for extended timeline. So all three, government can take over the property. So statement 4 is also wrong. Answer is statement 2 only. Statement 2 only is the answer. But yeah, these three terms, you should be aware. So this question also, most of you have gotten it right. Answer is B. B for Bombay. Now, just a quick recap if you don't already know. So the water around the nation is divided into 3 zones: the territorial waters, contiguous zone, and the exclusive economic zone. So up to 12 nautical miles from the shore is what is known as the territorial waters. Next 12 nautical miles is known as the contiguous zone. And up to 200 nautical miles is known as the exclusive economic zone. So all underwater resources within the territorial waters, like land, minerals, with all of these come under the union. From territorial waters, continental, contiguous zone, exclusive economic zone, all lands, all minerals, anything of these of value belongs only to the union. State does not have ownership over these things. State does not have ownership over these resources. All these lands, all the minerals, all of these come under ownership of Union of India. Like supposing you look at KG Basin oil. KG Basin oil was found, correct? Who do you think would have done the auction of the KG Basin oil resources? Because KG Basin oil resources are underwater. It's offshore as well as onshore. Offshore component is clearly there. Offshore component within the sea, who would have done the auction? Union government would have done the auction because union government is the owner of these resources, not the state. Therefore, Andhra government cannot auction petroleum and natural gas found in KG Basin. It will be auctioned by the government. Okay? Ownership of all land, minerals, all these resources comes under the union, not under the state. So first statement is incorrect. What is the second statement? Union government has jurisdiction over all underwater resources in contiguous zone. Yes. Not only contiguous zone, even territorial waters, even exclusive economic zone, union government has ownership. Territorial waters, contiguous zone, and this exclusive economic zone, the division is not for resources. Resources still union will only control. This segmentation into 3 zones is to decide whether foreign vessels, foreign ships can travel in that region or no. Okay. This division into different zones is to determine if foreign ships can travel or no. For example, foreign ships are allowed to travel in the exclusive economic zone, but they need prior permission if they want to travel in the territorial waters. So this is why that distinction exists. So tomorrow what we'll do is, tomorrow I promise that we'll do that Ministry of Cooperatives and some of the cooperative section. So we'll do that. We'll also maybe do some current affairs questions related to it. And lastly, if after that also time is left, we'll do more polity. What we will do for Monday is I will continue to do polity questions as well, but I will also shift emphasis towards economy. We will start doing economy questions, but in case I find that there are some polity questions which we need to do, which we have not covered, which can be important, we will also incorporate those. Yeah. Article 368, I will try and do it on Monday maybe, because for tomorrow I've already prepared the class notes. Article 368, I'll try and maybe cover briefly on Monday. But I feel like most of the people seem to be wanting questions and are finding questions to be useful. And I also feel like the revision that I'm doing through like whatever revision I'm trying to do, I'm not able to do it very quickly. Like even something like Parliament, because it's so detailed, it's taking me a lot of time. Even emergency provisions, I feel if I start, it might take me 15-20 minutes. So I don't know if that's an optimal use of time. I'm not able to do it as quickly because you can either do it in detail or you can do it briefly. But if you do it briefly, then you're missing all the important details that the chapter has. Like if I do emergency provisions without discussing the changes that each amendment brought from 2 months to 1 month, from internal disturbance to armed rebellion, unless you do all of those, you're not doing emergency properly. But if you're not doing emergency properly, then you'll make mistakes in the exam. So which is why I feel that like for sections like these, it could be very useful for you to do the revision on your own. You can do revision on your own. Any doubts which are there or any specific questions regarding that section, we can solve in class. Because if I have to revise the entire section, just revising the section is taking a very long time. And it is not, like my problem is that it is not fair to the students who are revising and coming. If there's a student who has already revised emergency and come, if I'm wasting 20 minutes to go through the same syllabus which he has already read, it is not good for me to waste that time like that. So if there are specific doubts you have in emergency, there are specific doubts you have in any section from polity, we can discuss only that doubt. That I will cover in detail. Instead of doing the entire chapter in detail. Entire chapter in detail is taking a very long time. Okay. So we'll meet again tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll do current affairs. We'll focus on current affairs questions as well as a current affairs topic. One full Ministry of Cooperatives topic we'll finish.